Hello again, YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. I've been asked some slightly basic questions this week about my Tesla, and I thought for those of you who are watching who don't have a Tesla or even an EV, but are kind of thinking, I don't want to ask because I don't want to sound daft, keep watching. This is the video for you. So I'm going to start off with a question that I was genuinely asked, and it was a genuine question because if you don't know the answer, it's an honest question. And it was, oh, you've got a Tesla. Why have you got that? And I just thought, what do you mean, why have I got that? Is there something about Tesla that makes you think that it's a different car or an unusual car, or why would you do this? So why have I got this car, a Tesla Model Y? Well, this is a family car. It has got absolutely bags and bags and bags and bags of interior space. It's got this huge panoramic roof, which I've talked about in quite a lot of different videos. It's got an absolutely enormous boot, and there's also space, of course, under the front. But this is also a sports car. Okay, it's not a McLaren, Ferrari, Pagani, whatever sports car. And I know that there's some people are going to be going, oh, it's not a sports car at all. What's he on about? But you can hustle this like you would not believe, considering that it's a bit of a big Bertha of a thing. So I've done a video on that recently where I literally just thrashed this thing across the roads. If you haven't seen that video, go and watch that one as well to see what I mean. This car basically is fun. But the next thing that I was asked was, ooh, is it an automatic? No, it's not an automatic, because automatic is talking about how it's changing gears. So a manual gearbox where obviously you've got a clutch and you're changing the gears yourself, or a automated manual like some of the Audi systems and things like that, or a proper automatic gearbox where it's changing gears by itself. What other kind of gearboxes can we have? How about a continuously variable one where basically it's just a series of endlessly changing ratios between two cones, or the hybrid synergy drive perhaps that Toyota and Lexus have got? No, it's none of those. It isn't an automatic because there are no gears. Electric cars are driven by electric motors, and in this case there are two of them. There is one in the rear and there's one in the front. And just like your washing machine has a motor that spins the thing round and round and round to dry all your clothes and to wash all of the dirt out of them, this car has got electric motors to spin the wheel round and round and round. It's exactly the same thing, only a little bit cooler than a washing machine. But there are no gears. So how does it actually work then, is the next question. Well, so when you've got a petrol or a diesel car, essentially you have got a complex set of electronics, timings, all of those kind of things, basically to squirt a precise amount of fuel into a cylinder mixed with air, which a spark then burns, and that explosion pushes the cylinder down and then it comes back up again, and doing that basically pushes a camshaft which spins round and round and powers the wheels. This doesn't have any of that. All this has got is a massive great big battery pack under the floor. It's got a little bit of electronic gubbins to be able to convert the power out of the battery pack into voltage which the electric motors can cope with, and then the motors spin and that turns the wheels, and that's basically it. But aren't they going to go wrong in a few years' time? Well, no. So this car is, where are we at now, 10 months old, and I've done 17 or so thousand miles in it. So if I had this as one of my previous cars, with the exception of BMW, where they will quite happily let you go 20,000 miles between services, this car would already have needed to have gone into the garage by now. So you book it into the garage for a service, it goes in, it has the oil and the filters changed, they will have a look and make sure that you haven't broken the brakes and that you're not bleeding any fluids out or any of that kind of stuff. This car has had no servicing done on 17,000 miles. And what's more, according to the service manual, this car isn't going to have any servicing done until it needs it. Because here's the thing, Tesla do not have a service schedule. None. There is no maintenance needed until it's actually needed. And the reason for that is fairly straightforward, which is there's so little to go wrong. You've got a battery pack, you've got some electrical wires, and you've got some electric motors. Okay, yes, you've got suspension components. They will need checking when the car gets a little bit older. But that's basically it, guys. And the rest of it's just a big computer. Well, you don't go and get your computer serviced at Curry's, do you? Really? I mean, I know Apple have got the Genius Bar where you can go and get the thing fixed and fettled, but it's kind of the same thing there. If you've got an Apple Mac, it's probably going to run for 5 years without having too much of a mental breakdown. And the car on that kind of basis really should be the same. The difference between Tesla and most of the other manufacturers is that Tesla do not rip you off with a service schedule which you don't need, whereas if you buy an EV from anybody else, they all still do, because actually servicing the car, that's where they make their money. But the battery, though, I mean, that's the real bad bit of an EV, isn't it? Because the battery's going to wear out. You're going to have to spend 50 bajillion pounds to be able to replace the battery. Otherwise, you'll get to 100,000 miles and your car is basically going to be completely useless. No, the battery will also run and run and run. And there are plenty of examples of Tesla battery packs doing very, very large mileages and still having most of their potency and most of the range. And this is the reality of it. These battery packs are really quite sophisticated now. They are not about to burst into flames. They are not about to go flat and then never recover. They are not completely useless. And then here's the thing. Even at the point where you've got an EV and the battery pack eventually gives up the ghost. And there are some where the early battery chemistry, so stuff like early Nissan Leafs and things, the batteries aren't really any use for driving a car anymore. But they're fantastic for household storage. They have value. It's not like you buy an old car and basically it gets past the point of economic repair and it goes to the scrapyard and you get 200 quid for it or something. Or if you're lucky, you might be able to, break the thing for parts and make a little bit more. The battery pack in an EV still has value, even if the range drops beyond the point where you think, actually, it's not really much use to me. And just as cars are electrifying, local storage of power with a battery pack is happening more and more and more as more people are now starting to get solar. We're still into tiny numbers. We are, but it's going to keep growing, and it'll do so especially when traction batteries from EVs start becoming available in large numbers. Yeah, but it is awful to drive though, isn't it? I mean, you've got this massive, great big, huge battery and it's actually going to destroy your tyres. There was a story in the Sun newspaper saying that EV drivers are facing a summer of hell because the enormous weight of their EV is going to destroy their tyres in the summer. And it's just absolute nonsense. It's laughable. This car has still got bags of wear left on the tyres on 17,000 miles. And you might say, well, that's not very far, but allegedly this is Big Bertha, the big heavy EV that's going to destroy tyres. And if it's not destroying them by its weight, it's going to destroy them by the fact that I make YouTube videos shooting the thing around and driving it enthusiastically, or they're all really quick, aren't they? So you're going to burn the tyres by spinning them up and all of that kind of stuff. No. It's all a load of nonsense. And here's the other thing as well. Your brakes are going to still be in really good condition when you've had the car for quite a long time, because this car, I mean, they say it's big and heavy. Well, it's certainly big and it's quite heavy, but it's not as big and heavy as some SUVs that you can get. And because it is regenerating so much of the power back into the battery, that means that the brakes don't get used very much. The actual disc brakes, I mean, on the front and rear axles. The brakes don't get used hardly at all. Well, that means several things. One, you're not having to have your discs and pads changed every your frequent period of time, but it also means that you're not getting piles of brake dust coming back onto the wheels. So I took the wheel covers off my 19-inch Gemini wheels and put the caps on instead, and I was waiting for there to be loads of crud sticking itself onto the wheels, and it just isn't, because the brakes aren't being worn down. So you've got a car that doesn't need to be serviced, that isn't eating its tyres, that isn't eating its brakes, and has got far fewer moving parts which are designed to wear out. So this actually is going to be a cheap to run car, not an expensive to run car. How many people have gone out there buying dirty diesels because they were told, well, you want a diesel, until suddenly diesel was bad? But they have now got AdBlue and things like that, and diesel particulate filters which clog up and get worn out, or cats that get worn and need to replace. We've got none of that in an EV. None of it. The parts simply aren't there to wear out.
Hang on, I know what it is. The bit that's going to break fastest in my Tesla is obviously going to be the computer, because that's going to be the thing. You can't do anything in your car because it's just a big computer. When the computer breaks, you're going to pay then, aren't you? Well, no. Okay, there is the risk of the computer breaking down. Yeah, absolutely. But what I think some people don't quite understand is that, the big screen that's in a Tesla, and it is a big screen, but, that's got actually one computer that is driving that, and there's a second set of computing power that is actually driving the car. So I can do a 2-button reset while I'm driving, press and hold both steering wheel buttons to reboot the computer that drives the screen, and the car keeps driving, and the car even keeps going on cruise control, because the computer that I'm rebooting isn't actually the one that's doing the actual driving bits. And how can I put this? They push so many updates out onto the computer system here in the Tesla, over the air and free, that they're always going to be able to keep updating the thing. So I'm not expecting the thing to just get old and break and slow down, because it's actually being updated. But then here's the thing, guys. How many people out there have got not an EV, so normal petrol or diesel car, that's also got a big screen in it, that's also got a computer system in there, that's driving everything from, the windows to the screen to the entertainment system to whatever else? And, of course, it's also managing the car. It's driving the engine. It's getting the fuel and air mixture right. It's managing all of the sensors. There are far more computer bits on a petrol or diesel car than I think there are in this. And that's despite the fact that this has got, lots of cameras now and sensors. So many other cars now have got cameras and sensors and things. It's not about an EV issue that suggests that these things are going to break, because it just isn't.
Yeah, but you can't go very far, can you, in an EV? Because I know it says that you've got, this number of miles, but it's not enough, is it? Because, I've got a diesel Audi and I can do 700 miles on a tank, and I do that every single time I get in the car. Every time I'm doing 700 miles without a stop, because I've got an enormous bladder and I've got a brain that's absolutely able to concentrate driving 12 hours without a stop. So unless I've got a car that can do 700 miles between charges, then I'm definitely not going to get an EV. Guys, stop, think. How many times do you stop when you make a long trip in your petrol or diesel car? Because you'll get to the point where you need a wee, or you need a break, or you need a snack, or you just want to get out of the car for 10 minutes. Absolutely. So you go to the motorway services and you park the car up, and you go to the loo and to the shop, and you eat and you walk and you do all of those other things for 20 minutes, something like that. And then you get back in the car, and then you drive around to the petrol station, and then you put some more petrol in, and off you go. In my Tesla, I go to the services, plug the car in, and then go wee, eat, toilet, walk, browsing the shop, whatever on earth it is. And then when I've done with that, I unplug and I carry on, because the car has fueled up while I'm doing all of those other things, which is something you can't do in a petrol or diesel car. Range just isn't an issue for me in this car, and I've said that repeatedly, but no matter how many times you think about that, there's still EV haters who say, oh, it's got to do 700 miles. It's just nonsense. It really is. You do not drive that way. And the main thing, of course, with an EV that you absolutely can do that you do not get to do with a non-EV is refuel it while you're asleep. Anyway, I think I probably prattled on for long enough, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But I want to hear in the comments what silly things that you've heard from people about EVs. You know, like just genuine, I didn't know that questions. What kind of questions did you have before you started looking at it in more details? And genuinely, I am not going to pass judgment or pick holes in anyone who doesn't actually know some of these things. And it is difficult when, certainly in Britain, we've got a media which at the moment is having an absolute pile-on to EVs in general and certainly to Tesla specifically. The amount of lies, and frankly they are lies, it's not disinformation, it's lies, that people are just swallowing, it makes it quite difficult. But fundamentally, we've got to get the message out there, because in the UK, in 2030, you are not going to be allowed to buy a straight petrol or diesel car. That's only 7 years away, and we're going to have to do a huge amount of work, both in terms of the charging infrastructure and also in the mental rationale that people have when they think about cars to get them here. To go right back to the beginning, why have you got a Tesla? That was the question. Why have you got a Tesla? My question is, why haven't you got a Tesla? Just get a Tesla. It's that simple. And with that, I'll see you soon.